sometimes get really frustrated when analysts or data scientists build predictive models. So they'll come along and they'll build a predictive model and they say, look, we've got this predictive model and we found these features that are predictive and therefore we can do X, Y, Z, whether it's through marketing, product sales, to increase something. So increase customer lifetime value, decrease churn, increase profitability or cross-sell, upsell, whatever it is. So they build these predictive models. And what really annoys me about that is that sometimes they miss the fundamental of building a predictive model. And I think this is actually quite common in the industry. One of the things that I like to do before I build a predictive model is actually to understand the current behavior. Now, this goes back to when I was doing my PhD. So I did my PhD in psychology and I built a model to understand and predict why children have accidents. The key bit is to understand currently how children behave and why they have accidents, and then be able to predict why they have accidents in the future. Because if you can't model the current behavior, then when you're predicting that behavior, you don't know which things or which of the features or which of the environmental factors or internal factors or external factors influence that behavior. Now, let's take an example. If you are looking at, let's say, why people churn, okay, you need to be able to model that behavior first. You need to understand what is the current state of play. Why are people churning now? What are the variables that index highly for people who churn? And then build your product predictive model to see if those things that index highly are predictors. Why I say this is because if you don't understand what's happening now and you end up going into a predictive model, you don't really know if you're moving the needle in the right way. So for example, let's say I work with a retailer that had basically two products, basic and premium. And what they wanted to do was upsell basic people to premium. If you don't currently understand how premium people behave and how basic people behave and if there are differentiators, when you build a predictive model, you don't know if the features that become predictive are things that you can influence. So one of the things that this retailer found was that age was a predictor of premium, which basically meant that if people were older, they took up the premium product. Now, age is not something that you can influence. Okay, people are the age they are. So if you didn't understand that and you built a predictive model, you start saying actually age is something that's a predictor of people buying premium products. So let's get everybody to be older. You can't make people older. The other thing is obviously location, so where people live. If certain postcodes buy this premium product and other postcodes don't, you cannot make those people move just so they can buy your premium product. So you've got to model the current behavior, understand the current behavior and why people do what they do. And then when you build your predictive model, you'll be able to understand the features that you can influence. So those features might be how often they visit. You can influence that. Okay, so if your predictive model shows that the frequency of visits leads to people buying premium, then yes, what you do is with the basic customer is try to get them to visit more often. Okay, and then there'll be other features that you will identify. So for example, you might find that if they buy this product, then they're more likely to become premium, or if they do this action, they're more likely to be premium. Like one of the things that the team found was that if they're more likely to click on premium products on an email, they're more likely to convert to go into the premium product. So what we then eventually did was test who was so when we modeled the behavior, we could see which groups of people were clicking on those premium products, okay? And then we knew roughly that, this X percentage of people were clicking on premium products. Therefore, when we built the predictive model, we knew what percentage of those we could convert. So it's very important that you model the behavior that you want first, okay? And that's basically understanding what they currently do. If you don't understand what they currently do, then when you start building predictive models, you don't know what you're moving to. One of the things that I would highly recommend data scientists to do is whenever you've got a scenario where you're asked to predict something because you want to change behavior, understand the current behavior, model it now, understand what are people doing now, what do they over-index on, what are the characteristics of people who do X versus Y. So in our case, people who bought basic product versus people who bought premium products. And then determine, when you build your predictive model, what are those variables that you've been able to model to understand the current behavior that you can then use to predict and influence future behavior so they then end up buying premium products. This normally would come under what we call EDA, or exploratory data analysis. So if you're a data scientist, that is one of the purposes why you would do the EDA. Okay, it's to understand the current behavior. A lot of the time, people do EDA just to understand the data and understand what it's showing. But actually, what you need to be doing is anchoring it to the behaviors of the customers or the people, whoever they are. They may be viewers, they may be customers, they may be prospects, prospect, whatever they are. What you're trying to do is anchor those data points, those behavioral data points, to understand what they're doing currently. That's what the EDA should hopefully help you understand. And in fact, what you find, and something I'll cover off in a future video, is that when you understand what people are doing, that in itself provides a lot of insight for the business. And you'll find that the EDA component of your analysis is sometimes as valuable as the predictive model part of it. So make sure you do the exploratory data analysis, and in that you are modeling the current behavior, so you understand what people are doing currently, and then go off and build your predictive model.